Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Spanish 101 virtual class lesson number 1. You should be doing this in conjunction with the sheet that I sent you or uploaded onto Moodle. I know some people were having trouble downloading stuff off of Moodle, so try to make sure to email this out as well. But again, you should have sheet number 1 out for this of the 1 and 2 sheet that I sent you. The first thing I'd like to obviously bring up is the fact that I have done something to my head. In preparation for my Halloween costume, I couldn't quite bring myself to go all the way down, but I got it as close as I was comfortable with. But I'll be sure to bring in some pictures next week for that, so you guys can see my costume if you're even interested. But anyways, side note, I'd also like to show you this virtual class 1 comes direct from my office in Hart. Just to kind of give you a quick tour, this is where I work when I am not in class. As you can see, we've got a little bit of a computer lab here, some tables and whatnot. We work with clients and do some translation work. So this is my home away from home when I'm not up at the campus. So jumping into lesson number 1. Obviously, we're going to forego counting because I doubt anybody would actually sit there and count, and I'm not going to sit here and count for you, and we'll pick that up next week. This lesson that we're going to go over today entails an explanation of the verb poder, which means to be able to or to can, and we're going to see that in conjunction with other verbs, how it's used. Now, when I say to be able to or to can, obviously I'm talking about the to be able to can, not canning fruits or vegetables or anything like that. It's completely different. It's just all this to be able to concept. The verb itself is an ER verb, and it conjugates very similar to an ER verb, except for the fact that it's a stem changing verb. We've seen that with tener, right? Because when we go into tener, which is to have, we've seen how the middle of it changes a little bit, not just the ending when you conjugate it. And that's the same thing with this verb, poder. But it's a verb that's obviously very common. It gets used a lot, so it's something that you kind of need to learn, and it kind of helps to introduce the idea of what irregular verbs look like. So we are going to go through it. As far as testing is concerned, I'm only going to ask you to be able to recognize it, not to be able to conjugate it per se, but you will also you'll also need to be able to recognize it orally for when we do the oral portion. I would imagine you might see a sentence like that for the final portion of the test. So let's jump right into it. If you can make sure you have your sheet, and this is for virtual class lesson 1. Towards the top, you'll see the verb poder. Conjugates into yo puedo, tú puedes, usted puede, él puede, ella puede, nosotros podemos, ustedes pueden, ellos pueden, ellas pueden. Okay, so that translated into English means I can, you can, talking to children or somebody you know really well, you can, he can, she can, we can, or you all can, ellos can, they can, and they can if I was talking to all girls, okay? So those are those down in English. Yo puedo, I can. Tú puedes, you can. Usted puede, you can. Él puede, he can. Ella puede, she can. Nosotros podemos, we can. Ustedes pueden, you all can. Ellos pueden, they can. Ellas pueden, they can. Okay? So that's the meaning behind what we're practicing here. And that could just as easily be translated into I am able to. It's pretty much the same thing, looking at it in English. So it's another aspect, I guess, that you need to think about with that. Now, again, I noticed the stem changer. When you look at poder, the O changed into a UE. It's just the way it's conjugated. That's the way it goes. The only difference you'll notice is in the nosotros form, and we've seen this in other verbs before, right? I guess, the little saying that I've always kind of gone by that helps people to remember it, we are strong and will not change. Okay, the we form just tends not to change even when you have irregular verbs. It just always maintains its status, its stem and everything. And I say always, like 90% of the time, 95% of the time. There are some situations where it doesn't. But that makes it a little bit nicer because then we can at least count on that one. The endings, however, are the same. You still got the O, the ES, the E, the amos, and the EN. Okay, so the ending stays the same as the other verbs, so that makes it a little bit easier to at least be able to recognize it. And you should kind of be getting familiar with the fact that when you see at the end of a verb a letter like an A, E, I, or an A or an E, I'm sorry, and an S, that must be the to form. And when you see the hemos or the amos, that must be the nosotros form. So you should be starting to get a little bit more comfortable with that and recognizing what the endings look like. Because they do stay pretty similar. I mean, throughout the verb conjugations, you're going to see a lot of similarities in them. So you should be recognizing the pattern and getting comfortable with it. Best way to practice this, again, is practice it with a verb and try to use that verb at work or just at school or wherever it is you are frequently. Now below, looking at the verb poder, we are going to do some sentences to show how it's used. So down towards the second half of the sheet, I'd like you to fill in the sentences along with the video and translate the sentences to the right. I'll do a couple for you to start out just to kind of give you an idea of what it is, and then I'd like you to do your own translation for the rest of them. Please notice the verb conjugations or lack thereof, so pay attention to what the verbs conjugate out through, and make sure you fill out the sentences as you go. If you miss one or two because you just couldn't quite understand, or three or four, whatever, that's fine. Just take a guess, do the best that you can, and when we get into class, we're going to go over some of this homework stuff, okay? These are all due Friday, unless you have an issue where you just can't figure out the email attachment thing or anything like that. That's okay. Then when we meet Monday or Tuesday, but make sure you email me ahead of time. And I am aware that there, like I said, some people that may struggle a little bit more with technology, but I think you are not telling me the truth that you don't know how to do an attachment on an email. And I feel that you're probably more than competent to be able to do that, and don't turn it in just because you want the weekend to do extra work on this. Then that could affect your grade on this. And these are all just going to basically replace our quiz grades during the week. So let's jump into it, down to the sentences. So sentence number 1, and I'll kind of like explain everything out through this just so you kind of get an idea of what I expect you to do. So sentence number 1 that starts out yo. Yo puedo terminar la tarea pronto. Yo puedo terminar la tarea pronto. Okay? So maybe you practice pronouncing it. You have to fill in that verb, that blank that I left there, which in this case happens to be puedo. Okay? I won't always tell you that, but you have to listen and pay attention. Yo puedo terminar la tarea pronto. In English, that would translate over to I can do or finish the homework right away. Okay, or quickly, however you would say that in English best. Number 2, tú puedes ayudar con el proyecto mañana en la mañana. Tú puedes ayudar con el proyecto mañana en la mañana. Okay, now I won't tell you what the word is there, but it's an AR verb that goes in after that, and it stays in its infinitive form, which is important to note. It stays in its infinitive form because it comes after a conjugated verb, tú puedes, you can. Okay? And conjugated out, this sentence is going to read, you can help with the project tomorrow in the morning. Again, notice mañana, en la mañana, tomorrow, in the morning. That always gets understood even though they use the same word for morning and tomorrow. Okay? So the rest of the sentences, I'm just going to go through and read them in Spanish, and I would just like you to try to fill in the blanks best you can, and then after you're done filling in all the blanks, go through and translate them. All right? So, going down to the third sentence. Nosotros podemos manejar el carro si tú quieres. Nosotros podemos manejar el carro si tú quieres. Number 4. Ellos no pueden escribir si no tienen plumas. Ellos no pueden escribir si no tienen plumas. Number 5. No escribo. No escribo. Number 6. Mi carro puede cargar hasta 5 personas. Mi carro puede cargar hasta 5 personas. And the last one. ¿Estás seguro que puedas levantar tanto peso? ¿Estás seguro que puedes levantar tanto peso? Okay? So that's all of them. I've read through them. You can skip back the video and hear them again if you'd like. In translating them, try to do it without a dictionary initially and try to get as many words as you can and then just look up the ones that you don't. There's a few smaller frequent words that we've seen here and there but haven't focused on. The word que when it's in a sentence, we've discussed that but not at length. So that usually means that. It's used to divide a sentence up. Other words that you'll see, si means yes, but it can also mean if. So keep that in mind when you see that word throughout there. So put the words down, fill out the blanks, and then put the translations next to the sentence. Now for the bottom of this, I'm just going to ask you to write 3 sentences using poder. Other verbs we've seen, nouns, adjectives, but use the verb poder. They can be short sentences, but just to fill in those 3 blanks and as practice, okay? And again, we'll make that for the purposes of this lesson, this whole sheet, closer representative of what a quiz could be, and I'll mention that in the email, okay? So this portion, this short section that we've gone over is going to be due Friday as well as the next section that you'll see for video number 2. So please make sure you take care of that and get it turned in. If you have any questions, email me, call me. Again, I kind of sort of maintaining office hours, but not really this week. So just please email me if you need to meet with me, so I know that I can schedule something to come up and meet with you. I don't have a problem with that at all. And if I have a few people that want to meet with me, then I'll just try to coordinate schedules or try to kind of block people together as best as possible. So thank you, and I will see you in the next video.